Welcome to a series of videos called English for Emerson. This channel is all about learning some basic English reading and writing, okay? You need something to write with. You need something to write on. You can see that I got a board here with sloppy lines on it, going side to side. These lines help me to keep my letters sized correctly and spaced correctly. You can see that they don't look very good. I hope that you've got nice clean lines on your paper. You're not going to find me with anything clean around here. That's just how it is. I'm a sloppy person, especially on this board. Now, folk sayings, I'll put it right up here, folk sayings. These are sayings from the old times that are part of our language, that have been handed down to us, that have been said for who knows how many years, multiple generations, and they just start to become part of the language that a lot of them may not have anything to do with modern life. Like, for example, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. How many people are out leading horses around in this day and age? Not very many. But people say it all the time. Do you follow me? These sayings are part of our language. Well, here's one today that doesn't have anything really to do with the old times, but it's a saying that's old. So it doesn't have anything to do with horses or pigs or chickens. Nothing like that. But it's very important. It's said all the time. Here we go. We start with a capital T. And then an H. E. R. E. This word is there. There is a difficult word because there's three different theres in English. There's this kind. We use this like go over there. Okay? There's also there like that is their bicycle. There's also there like they're coming over to our house. Ugh, it's crazy, the word there. 3 different theirs in English. All sound exactly the same, mean totally different things. This is not very. No, it has an E here. This is a vowel. And we know that if there's an E at the end of a word and there's another vowel in the middle, the E at the end is going to be silent. There is an. Got a little bit of tail on my end there. Exception. There is an exception. The words that start with the sound X, most of the time usually actually start with an E. It's not E-exception, it's exception. That E is going to make the soft E sound. X. X. This is a soft C. It's going to make the sound S. Exception. We know we haven't had the ending T-I-O-N for a while, but we know that when we see a T-I-O-N, it makes the sound shun. Shun. Almost like the T is an S-H. Shh. Except shun. Except shun. Except shun. It's not except T-I-O-N. It's not except T-on. It's exception. Exception. Can you say it with me? Exception. There is an exception. What does that mean? It means something that is not with the group. Like the group's over here, I'm outside of it. I'm an exception to the group. I'm outside of the group. Do you follow me? Someone who's outside the group. I guess another way you could say this would be an outlier. An outlier. Someone who's lying outside the group. I hope it makes sense. Something that's not part of a group is an exception. Okay? There is an exception to T-O, every, every is E-V. E-R-Y. That is not an attractive E at the beginning there. That is ugly. That's better. Every. E-V-E-R-E. Interesting ending to that word. It ends with the sound E, but it has a Y at the end. The Y at the end of a word can do a lot of things. It can make a E, I, A, probably other stuff too. It can do lots of different things. In this particular case, the Y at the end of this word, every, makes the sound E. There is an exception to every rule. Rule. R-U-L-E. That is not ruly. That E at the end of the word is silent. Why is that E silent? Because there's another vowel, U, in that word. Therefore, the E at the end of the word is silent. There is an exception to every rule. This is so true. There's an exception to every rule. What does this mean? There's always something that's outside of, that goes against the rule. There's always an exception. For example, one rule in life, generally speaking, is that people who are really good at playing the piano, generally speaking, have large hands, long fingers. It only makes sense. They can cover, a lot of different keys with their fingers and play and go back and forth much easier when they have large hands and long fingers. Rachmaninoff, who was a great, I believe, Russian pianist and composer of music, one of the greatest pianists of all time. I don't know exactly how big his hands were, but I've heard stories, and I'll put up pictures, that he had extremely large hands and long fingers. He was able to stretch his hands out from the thumb to the pinky and play things that other people just simply could not because his hands were bigger. He could stretch them out and play lots of different keys at the same time. Do you follow me? He had large hands. And as a rule, the best pianists, people who play the piano, have large hands. Long fingers. In fact, they actually do exercises to stretch their hands and fingers out. So they can expand and play more of the keys. But there's exceptions to this rule. In fact, I went to a concert years ago with a guy who was a short little guy. Short, fat little guy with small hands. Great pianist. I don't know. He didn't even know how he did it. He didn't even know how he did it. But he was somehow able to move his hands real fast and just by speed play all the keys that needed to be played to be able to play the same music that Rachmaninoff composed and wrote down. He was an exception to the rule. Do you follow me? He was a pianist with tiny hands. There's an exception to every rule. I've been teaching you on this channel that E at the end of a word is always silent if there are other vowels in that word. But there's exceptions to it. There's exceptions to this rule. One word, I don't know if you've noticed this, that I've been teaching you, is apostrophe. Like if I say the dog's tail. The dog's tail. There's an apostrophe in there. That apostrophe is telling you that the tail belongs to the dog. Apostrophes can also combine two words into one, like can't. combines cannot into can't. That apostrophe, look at that thing, has an E at the end of the word. It also has vowels in the word that come before it. A lot of vowels in that apostrophe word. Look at that. That E at the end of apostrophe makes a noise. It makes a noise. It makes the sound E. What the heck is going on? That broke the rule. Well, that's just like that in life. There's an exception to every rule. You know, there's a saying in the Bible. I'm going to be done. Now I'm going to go to preaching. I knew it was going to happen eventually. Now I've gone to preach in the Bible. Oh boy, here we go. Oh no. Now it's really gone on. Now English for Emerson, now it's expanded into a whole nother universe. Oh my God. But I'm going to do it. I'm going to go to preaching now. There's a saying in the Bible. It says, there is a time for every season under the heaven. I'll put it up here. It's a saying from the Bible. Maybe it's Ecclesiastes, something like that. There is a time to every season under the heaven. What does this mean? What does this mean? Oh my gosh, now I've gone to preaching. It means there is a time for everything on earth. There's going to be a time for everything. There's an exception to every rule. There's a time for everything. And there's even a time to have an E at the end of a word that makes a sound even though there is other vowels in that word. And one example of that is the word apostrophe. That's the English lesson today. That's the folk saying we got today. There is an exception for every rule, or there is an exception to every rule. So true. So true. We don't want to get too caught up in the rules. They're important to follow them, but there's an exception to every rule. That's just how it is. And the old timers knew about this. We'll see you next time on English for Emerson. Bye-bye.